Okay, from today's tutorial, we're going to model a walkie-talkie that goes along with the Lego minifig. And real fast before we do the modeling, let's just go ahead and actually take a look at these walkie-talkies. Really interesting as far as their form is concerned. Each different side to this walkie-talkie features something completely and uniquely different, which is going to represent a fair bit of a challenge for us as we make this into one object over here in Maya. All right, so hopping back over to my Maya scene, you can see that I have my left side reference, I have my front reference, and then on a separate layer over here, I also have my rear reference and then my right side reference. All right, so I'll just go ahead and toggle that off, and let's go ahead and get started. All right, now when I'm modeling something like this, especially something that prominently features an ellipse, I like to go ahead and start with that as my base geometric object. Now, in this particular case, instead of a cylinder, let's go ahead and actually get started with a pipe. All right, so the pipe's created. I'll just go ahead and press return to commit that. Click on the polypipe input. I'm going to change my subdivision axis to 16. All right, I'm going to scale my thickness now. All right, and get that in place. Now I'll come over here to the side, select all the faces with the exception of this one end cap, and go ahead and delete them. All right, I'll come back over here into object mode and just make sure I have this object exactly where I want it to be. I'm going to select my edge. I'll double click on that and then go ahead and press extrude. Now, instead of using the regular extrude handles, I'm going to actually just use a regular scale tool and kind of scale that out. I'll come in and select these vertices and then just scale them along the y-axis so that everything is nice and flat. I'll go ahead and do that with all four sides here. So in essence, what we're doing is instead of extruding out that elliptical shape, we're going to actually extrude out a box from the pipe or from the ellipse. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'll just go ahead and double click on one of these edges and scale them all back down into an area where I can kind of use them easily and manageably. Okay, that's looking good. Now I'm going to grab this edge right here and bring it a little closer to my pipe. I take that back. I'm going to bring it right up to the edge of this negative space right here, where the hand will actually go. I'm going to grab this edge, however, and I'll double click that and extrude it, and then just translate it over to the contour of my of the front ortho for my walkie-talkie. Now the reason why I've done this is I've done this in anticipation of having a good solid additional edge loop to help reinforce my hard crisp edge over here on this side. I'll go ahead and grab these edges right along the bottom. I can get this selection to take, and I'm going to move it down just a little bit, just beyond this button right over here on the side. So you can see what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to anticipate where these buttons will end up playing out in relationship to the rest of my geometry. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to move this one up so it'll fall approximately in the center of this handle right over here. Then I'm going to take this edge right here and actually move it up and above the handle for my phone. All right, and I like how that's looking. So now I'll grab these edges along the top and go ahead and extrude those and translate my new extrusion up to the top of the contour. I'll grab these right over here on the side and go ahead and extrude those over like so. I'm going to select all the faces right here on the inside of my pipe and extrude those, but I'm going to scale them into the center. I'll come over to select, convert selection to vertices, and then I will merge those. All right, now let's go ahead and take this object and I'm going to duplicate it. All right, that is done with Command or Control D. And now I'm going to scale this -1 on the y-axis. Whoops, not -11, just -1. All right, you can see what that's done is that's created, for the most part, a mirror image of the piece of geometry that we just created. All right, I'll go ahead and finagle this down into place. And now I'll need to tweak this so it matches the bottom part of this walkie-talkie. All right, I'm moving these vertices in anticipation of extruding this shape out when the time comes. All right, I'll go ahead and select these two objects now, come up to Mesh and do Combine. Then I'll select these edges right here, select the corresponding edges on the bottom side, and in theory, I should just be able to bridge those. I'm just going to undo that bridge because it looks like my bridge options, I have the division set to 5. I'm just going to bring that back down to 0 and go ahead and recommit that bridge. All right, and so now this is one solid object. Okay, I'm just going to kind of double check things here. Right up here at the top, I believe I'm just going to anticipate the connection point for this antenna. So I'm just going to tweak a few things a little bit. Okay, now that looks good. Now what I'm going to do is double click on just one of these edges so it selects the entire edge loop running around the circumference of this object. Actually, before I do that, let me select it in object mode, come over here to my side view, and just move it so that it aligns with the front face of my walkie-talkie. All right, this might be a good point to recenter my pivot. Okay, and I'll go ahead and place it right there. Right, now I'll come in and grab all these edges. Come back over to my side view and I'll extrude those and just translate those backwards like so. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and click on Mesh and fill that hole. Okay, now you can see it's doing some weird things. We need to go back in with our interactive split tool and kind of clean the back side of this up. So I'll just go ahead and turn off the layer on which the right and the front orthos were. Let's go ahead and grab that interactive split tool and start cleaning this up, if it'll let me. All right, looks like this tool is taking issue today. All right, that worked right there. Every once in a while, when something's not working the way it's supposed to, it's not a bad idea to come over to Edit, come down to Delete by Type, and delete your history, because there could possibly be something that exists in the history state that's getting in the way of this action that I'm attempting to perform. And sometimes Maya is just a turd. Okay. Let me delete this face. I'm going to try and redo that fill. It doesn't look like I got any better results. Let's see what the interactive split tool does this time. All right, in theory, this should be easier to do. What you need to do, I'm just going to pause my video while I go ahead and do this myself, but you need to reconnect the corresponding vertices and edges with one another, from one side to the next, from top to the bottom. Okay, it took a little bit of troubleshooting, but I figured out what was going on. It looks like something got messed up with the extrusion, and I had to do a little cleanup on some doubled up edges. So once I got that taken care of, then the interactive split tool worked the way that it was designed to work. All right, so the next thing let's do, let's go ahead and turn our orthos back on, and let's start modeling this antenna. So I'll hop over into my front ortho. I'm going to grab this sphere. I'll just hold down Shift. Go ahead and draw it out there. Now I think I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees on the x-axis. I'm going to click on my polysphere input, and I'm going to change the subdivisions and the subheight both down to 8. I'll grab these bottom faces right here and just go ahead and delete those. I'll grab this bottom edge and extrude that inwards. Now I can't actually see how far I've scaled it inwards, so I'll just move it down here for a second and then continue that scaling. Right, get it to where I want it to be, and then I'll just go ahead and pop it back up into place. Now I'll go ahead and click on the extrude button again. Go ahead and translate this down. Right, press F on my keyboard so the camera zooms in and focuses on the area that I'm working. I'll go ahead and do another extrusion and scale it outwards. All right, and then I'll go ahead and do one more extrusion and I'll translate that down. All right, relatively easy and painless. I'll go into my smooth preview mode just to make sure that everything's working the way that it's supposed to be. All right, I'm just having this weird problem with my extrusion, or I'm getting double edges somehow. All right, no worries with the object selected in object mode. I'll go ahead and just do merge. Okay, and it'll merge those doubled up vertices and edges with each other. So I have a little bit more finite control over where I would like to put my additional edge loops. Okay, so I like how that's looking. All right, now I'll come back over into my side view, grab that antenna, and move that into place. All right, let's come over to my front view, and I just want to see how this corresponds. I'm going to center my pivot here. I want to see how it corresponds with the geometry we have in the Walkie Talkie. I'll hold down X, and I'm going to snap it to the center of my grid here. Actually, I could come into my channel box editor and just zero that out on both the X and the Z axes. Right, my perspective view, I'm going to turn on my wireframe on shaded, because what I want to do is make sure that this vertical edge and this edge along the Z axis on both these objects line up, right? Because we're going to use a Boolean feature to merge these together. Now I'm going to grab my Insert Edge Loop tool and insert an edge loop on my Walkie Talkie body that corresponds with the base of the antenna. I'll select the body, then hold down Shift and select the antenna. Actually, I'm going to save this right now because I don't always trust the Booleans, just in the event that Maya crashes. I'll come up and click on Mesh, come down to Booleans, and select Union. All right, and it looks like for the most part it did its job. Now we need to do a little cleanup work. So I'm going to grab these areas where the edges appear to intersect. In reality, when we go into smooth preview mode, we can see that they don't. And I'll just go ahead and merge those. Right now what that's done is that's left us with an awkward multi-sided face right here. But because I set it up the way that I did, I can grab the interactive split tool and just draw from corner to corner. And you can see what we're doing is we're actually initiating a circular edge flow around the base of this antenna, appropriately transitioning one form into the next. Okay, if I come into smooth preview mode, you can see that for the most part that looks pretty decent. All right, now I'll just grab my Insert Edge Loop tool, and I'll insert an edge loop here, and insert an edge loop right there. Right, set back into object mode, back off. Oh, it looks nice. Okay, let's go ahead while we're at it and grab these circular edge flows. We'll come into our side view and I'll extrude those outwards. Right, we can really see this walkie-talkie coming together and starting to take shape. Now over here in my side view, I'm going to go back into object mode. I'm going to grab my Cut Faces tool and insert some additional edge loops. You hold down Shift as you do this so it snaps to 45-degree and 90-degree increments. Insert some additional edge loops so that everything works the way that I want it to with those with these post holes. Okay, I like how that's looking so far. All right, I do believe I'm going to add in some additional edge loops now and just kind of start making this body a little blockier. So I'll insert an edge loop right in through here. I'll insert one right in through here. Insert one going around this way. Put one right in here. One right in here. And one right in there. Okay, now I actually ran into an issue that I didn't anticipate and I should have anticipated. Because of the edge flow, the circular edge flow that we set up around the base of this antenna, these additional edges that we put in on the side end up coming into this base and up the antenna itself consequently giving it a hard edge, which is easier to see if we turn off our wireframe on shaded. All right, so don't like how that's looking. I'm just going to go ahead and back things up real fast. Actually, instead of backing things up, let's just go ahead and delete these edge loops. So double click on one of the edges, make sure that it's all selected, come up to Edit Mesh, delete Edge and Vertice. All right, I'll do the same thing right here. All right, now an easier way to take care of this and kind of work in and around this circular edge flow right here would be to come into our side view. I'm going to grab this guy in object mode, and I'm going to, once again, grab my Cut Faces tool. All right, this will just plow right through. Oops, it would help if we selected the object first. This will go ahead and just actually plow right through that circular edge flow. And then we can come in and merge together some of these vertices to avoid having some of these triangular faces. All right, so select those, we'll select those. Come around over here, shift select these, shift select those. Come up to Edit Mesh and merge. All right, nothing happened, that's okay. We just need to click on our polymerge input and increase the distance 2.1. All right. And now things are working the way that they are supposed to. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over and actually start working on the opposite side of this walkie-talkie. All right, and so let's go ahead and work with these buttons right here. Actually, before that, let's go ahead and take a crack at that handle because that's the last piece of information that we'll need these two particular orthographs for. So I'll hop into my side view. I'm going to grab my pipe tool and draw a pipe here. Bring it down, position it within the handle itself. I'll go ahead and scale that up so that its diameter matches the width of our handle itself. Let's scale that up just a little bit more. Let's rotate it 90 degrees here on the x-axis. Okay, I'm going to come into my polycylinder inputs. Actually, I'm going to freeze my transformations. What that does is that just kind of zeroes out everything right in here, the translate, the rotate, and the scale values. Now I'm going to come into my height, and I'll scale that up a little bit. All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to try setting it at 8 initially. All right, now on the subdivision axis, let's turn this back down to 8. All right, so we have enough information here to give us a believable cylinder, but also a minimal amount of information to help facilitate our attempt to use booleans to reconnect it to the body, and in a similar manner that we managed that antenna right there. All right, we'll come back over in here. I'm going to now set the subdivision height to 40. And I think I'm going to increase my height to 12. Let's see what this ends up doing. All right, from the side, we'll go ahead and put this in place. Hold down X, and it should snap to that center point right there. Now I'll reset my transformations again. All right, so I'm happy with how that looks. Now I'm going to come over to my deformation tab, and I'm going to apply a bend modifier to this. I'll go ahead and play around with the curvature just a little bit right here. All right, just so we know along which axis we're going to initially start the bend. I'm going to take my low bound, and I'm actually going to zero that out. I'm going to take my high bound, and I'm going to try and max that out. Now I'm going to play around with these settings and see if I can't get a bend here that will match the curvature that I need for this handle. I'm going to grab both of these and drag them up to this point where the bend is initiating. All right. Now the cool thing is I have this bend applied to it, but I can still, I believe, come to my polycylinder inputs and play around with the subdivision height and see if lessening that height is going to give us any more desired results, and it doesn't look like it is. See if increasing it will do anything for us. Nope. So I'll go ahead and set that back to 40. I think what I'll go ahead and try and do now is actually grab some of these faces and delete them. Come back in here, let's grab that bend, play around a little bit more with that curvature. All right, so it looks like what I need to do is just kind of manually push it past the point that it would normally naturally want to go. So it looks like -6 isn't quite getting us there. All right, I want to at least have one edge that represents an approximate 90-degree angle right here. All right, so let's try -6.5. That looks like that is too much. Let's try -6.25. Looks like that is pretty close. Let's come in here and delete these additional faces. Oops. All right, now the cool thing is we commit this by selecting this pipe and simply coming to Edit, coming down to Delete by Type and deleting the history. Then what that's going to do is that's going to delete that bend input but commit it prior to removing it. All right, we probably don't need all this. So let's go ahead and delete it. Actually, I'll go ahead and delete it from this point. Whoops. Okay, and you know what? I need to back up a little bit. Or do I? I apologize. Give me just a second here as I look at this. I think I can still work with this. All right, so I'm going to duplicate this object. Now I'm going to basically mirror this object along the x-axis. So I'll put in a value of -1 there on the x-axis. And I'll go ahead and rotate this -90 degrees and bring it up here. And if I've done things right, I should be able to get these two to match up, relatively speaking. All right, so I'll go ahead and delete this much of the new pipe that I created. Now I'll select the old pipe and delete the faces that I don't want there. Forgive me, I'm making this more complicated than it needs to be. Let me back up. I don't need to do that. I simply need to grab these edges right here, come back into my polygons, and extrude those, and take them back like so. All right, I'll grab this edge right here and go ahead and bring that down. All right, so now when I go into smooth preview mode, even though things look a little awkward right here in this corner, in this view, there's a little bit of clipping. When I come into smooth preview mode, they sort themselves out. Okay, let's go ahead and take this now. I will once again freeze my transformations. I will duplicate this. I will set this scale Y value to -1 so that I flip that. And I will bring it right down in here and put it where it belongs. Right, I'm going to translate this one upwards. All right, I'll grab both of these simultaneously. I'll combine them and hit merge and try and merge those two together. All right, so that is a relatively simple way of creating that handle. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to use our booleans to merge these two objects together. So I'm going to just take a look at things. From my front ortho, I'm going to select the top of this handle here. And I'm just going to bring it up a hair. Right, come down here and grab this one and also bring it up a hair, about right there. All right, I'm going to turn my X-ray, or not my X-ray, sorry, my wireframe on shaded back on, because what I want to do is start prepping the connection points, or the anticipated connection points here. So if you go into wireframe mode, you can see I'm selecting this vertice. Right, it falls right in here in the center of this handle. I'm just going to fudge that up a little bit until these edges appear to connect. All right, I'm actually going to grab this one right here and fudge this one down so that I can establish that circular edge flow. All right, now right here, we'll just go ahead and let this circular edge flow culminate in two triangular faces. I don't think that that will cause us any problems. So once again, I'll go into wireframe mode so I can grab that one vertice, come back out into the shaded mode, and use that to finagle things in place. And I think that looks good. So let's go ahead and select both of these objects in object mode. So I'll start with the base, select the handle, click on mesh, come down to booleans, and boom, union. All right, you can see we need to do a little cleanup. This vertice should be connected with that vertice. Now just having the object selected in object mode, I can just go ahead and hit merge, and for the most part, it should do the job. All right, now let's go ahead and grab our interactive split tool and come in here and establish this circular edge flow. All right, and once again, because our handle is actually connecting into a similar point right in here, we'll just go ahead and let this edge flow culminate in some triangularly shaped faces. Do the same thing right down here. All right, check things out in smooth preview mode. I like how it's looking. Let's insert some edge loops so we have a little bit of a harder edge. Or a harder edge being the transition. And I think that looks really nice. Right, I'm satisfied with that. So now what we can do is we can turn off those two orthos, and we can come in here and grab these ones from the side. Now I'm going to come over here to the side. I'll hold down the space bar, click on Maya, and let's see. Well, thought that I could go ahead and just change the side view and actually specify a different one right here. Let's just go ahead and use these tools up at the top and rotate things around there. Back out, I can't see what I'm looking at now. Should be seeing more of this right here. Give me just a second. There we go. Just needed to revisit that. All right, so things are getting a little hard to see here, what's going on. But I believe these three edges, I'll double check that in my perspective view. All right, represent this area right here in which we need to establish a circular edge flow for that button. All right, and then also right down here, we'll do the same thing. I'll leave that one alone. All right, so this other button will be established down here in this area. So I'm going to grab this, actually these edges right here. I'll grab the vertices associated with them instead, so I can just move everything up and keep it a little cleaner looking. And bring that up about in the center for where that button needs to go. Let's make sure I have only the vertices selected that I need. And bring this one up in the center of this ellipse here from the side. All right, what I'm going to do now is I'll go ahead and create a cylinder. Hold down Shift as I'm doing this. Right. Go ahead and press Return. Come into my polycylinder inputs and change the subdivision axis to 8. That'll make it easier to merge in here. All right, let's come to our side view. Right, we need to rotate this around. And just pull that out as far as it needs to go so that it matches my reference. So I'll just go ahead and hit Command D to duplicate that and bring this one down and put it where it needs to go, which looks like is right there. All right, I'll come into my perspective view and just check things out. All right, it looks like things aren't lining up quite as perfectly as I'd like, so let's go ahead and grab these vertices right in here. Just kind of scooch them down a hair. All right, this one's lining up a lot better. So I'll come into object mode, select my base, and hit save because I'm about to do a Boolean. Then I'll select my button, come up to Mesh, Booleans, Union. All right, let's go ahead and do it again. Grab the base, select the button, Mesh, Booleans, Union. Okay, come into smooth preview mode. You can see that it hasn't Has it merged those vertices? With the exception of right here. Look at that. Wow. So I'll click on Edit Mesh, come down to Merge. All right, and now what I need to do is come in here and take my interactive split tool and establish some circular edge flow. Around each of those buttons. Whoops. All right, it's looking nice. All right, now I'll come in and look at it from the side. I'll grab my Cut Faces tool. Insert some additional edges so I just have that crispness that I want. And back out and take a look. Let's turn off the wireframe unshaded. And that's looking really nice. I'm really satisfied with that. Okay, now you can see this other part is not a little round button. It's actually a rectangle, which is going to be a little tricky to get to work exactly how I would like it to. Let's hop out of smooth preview mode. Right, it looks like we'll need to use these faces right here. All right, I have these faces selected. I'm going to go ahead and extrude them. And I'm going to use the actual extrude tool this time. I'm going to grab the scale box for the green handle and scale this laterally from my point of view up to the edge of that button. Now I'll grab the scale handle for the red tool and I'll scale that one vertically. I'll grab these vertices right here and bring them into place. All right, so I've likewise created a circular edge flow around this button, but we'll need to be a little trickier to make sure that it remains square. So I'll grab these faces right here. All right, I'm just going to rotate around, make sure I didn't inadvertently grab any other faces. All right, come here to the side and extrude that out to get the depth that I'm looking for. Grab my Insert Edge Loop tool. Insert some edge loops to help preserve some hard edges. Now if I go into smooth preview mode, you can see what it's attempting to do is it's attempting to round out those corners. That is not what I want. I'll go ahead and grab my Insert Edge Loop tool again and insert some edge loops right here. Now the edge loops are actually running beyond where I want them to, and then they're coming up here into this button and compromising that form, and they're kind of doing a similar thing to the handle. All right. So I'm going to come down to this point, and I'm going to delete that edge. I'll select both of these simultaneously and delete them. I'll double click on this one, hold down Shift, and double click on that one. That should select these all the way across to where they come up over my handle, over in here, and wow, they went all the way up through my antenna. Let's go ahead and do a delete edge and vertice on that. All right, so they just come down and they stop right there. All right, now it's created a 5-sided face. Not something that I'm really proud of, but I think I'm going to let that one go because it doesn't look like it's creating any problems as far as my form's concerned. So I'll just go ahead and do the same thing right over here. Delete edge and vertice. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's do the same kind of treatment from the side. Grab this edge and that edge. Delete those. Grab these leftover edges. Grab those leftover edges. Do delete edge and vertice. Right, as you're doing this, make sure that you're only grabbing the edges that you intend to delete. Otherwise, you're going to cause some problems on the opposite side of your model. Right, so when in doubt, it's never a bad idea to rotate around your model to make sure you've only selected what you've anticipated. So delete edge and vertice. And that looks okay. I'm happy with that. All right, the last thing we need to do is come in here and figure out how to create these indentations. This is going to be a little tricky. All right, so I believe what I'm going to do is I'll start by selecting my model. I'll hold down spacebar, click on display, come down to hide and hide the selection. Right, I will grab a plane, or at least attempt to grab a plane. Doesn't look like it's wanting to do what I'm wanting it to do. So I'll just do this from the side. You know what, let's... Wow, I think I just killed it. All right, go back to the front. Let's rotate. Wow. I was really on one today. You know, I'm just going to go ahead and do it from the front side, at least to get it set up. So I'll go ahead and draw in my plane, and I'm actually going to push it out so it's behind, so it's behind my reference. Right, and it'll come right in here. And I'm going to set up my subdivision width to 2, my subdivision height to 8. All right, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these little slots. So I believe, if I remember right, each of these divisional increments actually just so happens to coincide with the division on the grid. All right, now what I'm doing is I'm actually just setting this up as a piece of reference. I won't actually be using this, but it's going to just facilitate my ability to clean things up on the back side of my model. All right, let's see if I get lucky and have it. Okay, looks like it's not going to snap to the center of these, so we'll just have to do this part manually. Okay, so now we have this reference for setting up the geometry on the back side. Or not setting it up, but restructuring the geometry on the back side of our Walkie Talkie. See if I can get this camera to work now. Okay, so we'll go ahead and rotate that around. Now if I press display, or hold down the spacebar, come back to display, I can do show last hidden. And that should pop up my model. All right, and put that back. Now I'll need to grab this. It would help if I grabbed it in object mode. And brought this back and actually embedded it inside my model. Okay, and use that as a reference point to start lining up some of my edges, which are proving to be difficult to see. Let's go ahead and turn off the X-ray. Okay, I was able to get this working just by kind of toggling back and forth between my camera directions. And then it ended up showing me the back side. For some reason, the preview wasn't working correctly and it was showing me the front side. So now, if I go into my X-ray with my wireframe on shaded turned on, now we can see the back side featured much more prominently than the front side. All right, so what I am going to do is I'm going to grab this edge, hold down Shift, and come up here up to this edge right there. Now I'll use my scale tool, just scale those laterally, and then use my translate tool and bring them over here and line them up with this plane that we had previously set up for reference. So I'll do the same thing on this side. Scale that. All right, and translate it into place. All right, now what I need to do is come here with each one of these tiers, scale that. I'll hold down, or go to translate, hold down X, and snap it into place. It's a little tedious, but it's going to achieve some really nice results. With this one right here, I just want to double check. I could actually grab this series of edges all the way through here. I might do that in this perspective mode. So I can actually grab all these. No, I don't want to do that in this particular case. Just want to grab these two edges right here and snap them up. All right, I'll take this one right here, hold down X and snap that one down. Let's go ahead and scale this one flat. Snap that into place. Oops. Scale this one into place. Scale this one into place. And then translate it. All right, so we're ending up with some interesting looking geometry right here. I'm actually going to grab these edges right here and scale and translate them as well. Oops. Okay, and you can see with this last one, we actually looks like need to insert an edge loop right in through here. Now I kind of anticipated that that would be the case. That's cool. We can go ahead and just scale that down and snap it into place. All right, that one's going to go all the way around in through the front of our Walkie Talkie. Okay, for the moment, I'm actually going to grab this edge here, hold down Shift and double click and bring it all the way down to here and grab that edge. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do it beyond that point. And I'm going to delete those. Actually, not delete those. Let's go ahead and do the delete edge and verticing. Okay, because what I want to do is grab each of these 8 faces unencumbered by that additional geometry. I'm going to click on my edit mesh and deselect keep faces together. Now this is really cool because now when we extrude, it'll extrude each one of these faces individually. So I'll hit the extrude button. All right, I'm going to use the scale tool that's associated with the extrude. All right, so that I can do that. All right, now that that's been done, I can go ahead and, let's see, we'll do one more extrude. And this time, we'll just translate those faces inwards just a little bit. Awesome. I like how that looks. Okay, select this in object mode. Now I'm going to grab my insert edge loop tool. All right, insert an edge loop up and through here. It corresponds with the center of this. And then I will use my interactive split tool to finish that off. Okay, and then the last thing that I'll do, actually this won't be the last thing, but it'll be close. Let's just insert a couple of additional edge loops in through here. Let me back up real fast. I've got an easier way of doing this than manually inserting each one of these edge loops. Let's come into, select this in object mode. All right, I was trying to do that to purge this few selected faces over here. Let's actually select the edge flow. It goes around the indentation for each one of these buttons. And then what we can do is use the Cut Faces tool on these faces only. All right, we'll have to do this from the side. All right, that's looking nice. Okay, the last thing that we need to do is insert a few additional edge loops so that we end up having corners to these little inlets that look a little bit more like that. So let's go ahead and take a look at this from our rear view. We don't need that center reference anymore, so we can go ahead and delete this. All right, I'm going to grab my Insert Edge Loop tool and insert an edge loop about right in there. All right, so when I go into smooth preview mode, I can pay attention to what that edge loop is doing to this contour. It looks like it's getting really close. I need it to be over just a little farther. All right, now once again, what's happening with these edges is it's taking them and directing them up our antenna, which we do not want. All right, so we need to kind of redirect them, and we'll do this with the interactive split tool, right, by coming down about right in here. That works. Then drawing back up like so. I will delete this edge and that edge. I'll grab this edge flow, and I'll grab that edge flow and do delete edge vertice. Yeah, it looks like we missed one. All right, so what we've done is these additional supportive edges, or edge loops, as they come up here, we've just redirected that back down on itself and created a circular edge flow that kind of complements these little insets. So let's go ahead and do the same thing right down here. Grab the interactive split tool. Right. Delete those edges and then do some cleanup right here. Okay, rotate around, make sure we only have selected what we want. Delete edge and vertice, which it didn't do. There we go. All right, and everything should be complete, and it should look exactly like what we want. So I'll just come over here into my channel box editor, turn off these other orthos, rotate around our object. Now, if we wanted to, we could go ahead and probably throw a black blend on this, so it looks a little bit more like our Lego piece. Or it looks a little bit more like our reference. All right, I'm going to turn on a slightly better quality preview. And I am really pretty happy with how that turned out. All right, the best part about this is that it's possessive of a very sophisticated form, but it is one object. And as such, I think it's high time that we delete its history. All right, and there you go.